The night Gotham's darkness learned what it meant to face a living legend began not with thunder, but with silence. The kind of silence that precedes revelation, when the universe holds its breath before everything changes. In a city where gargoyles watched over crime-soaked streets and a bat signal cut through perpetual gloom, nobody expected a star to fall. But fall it did. The anomaly tore through reality above Crime Alley, that blood-stained intersection where innocence died and vengeance was born. Cosmic energy, blue and crackling, wrong in a way that made the air taste of copper and ozone, spiraled into existence. It wasn't a boom tube, not exactly, though it carried the signature of new god technology. It was something else, something broken, and through it stumbled a man with a shield. Steve Rogers hit Gotham pavement hard enough to crack concrete, his vibranium shield clattering across cobblestone slick with rain. He rolled with trained precision, already assessing dark city, Gothic architecture, the smell of rot and desperation. Not New York, not anywhere he recognized. The rift sealed behind him with a sound like reality sighing in relief, leaving him alone in an alley that had seen 1,000 crimes and would see 1,000 more. He retrieved his shield, muscles coiling as footsteps echoed in the darkness. Not running toward him, circling, professional. Steve's enhanced hearing caught the whisper of a cape, the faint hum of sophisticated electronics. Whoever approached moved like a soldier or a predator. Hands where I can see them. The voice emerged from shadows, given form, gravel, and certainty. The shield, put it down slowly. Steve turned to face him. The figure stood on a fire escape above, silhouetted against the weak glow of Gotham's diseased sky. Pointed ears, flowing cape, symbol on the chest, a bat. Steve's tactical mind cataloged everything. Armored suit, utility belt, military grade, stance, martial arts master, voice modulator, paranoid about identity and something else. This man had seen things, done things, the kind of things that carved shadows into your soul. "I'm not here to fight," Steve said carefully, keeping his shield low but ready. Years of combat experience told him this one was dangerous, very dangerous. "I don't know where here is, but I'm not your enemy." That's what they all say. The figure dropped from the fire escape in perfect silence, landing in a combat crouch. Up close, Steve could see the armor's sophisticated design, beyond anything SHIELD had produced. The white eyes of the cowl studied him with unsettling intensity. Unusual entry, boom tube signature but unstable. "You're not from Apocalypse, but you're not from here either." "Apocalypse," Steve filed the name away. "I'm from," he paused. "How did you explain Earth 616 to someone who might not understand the multiverse?" "Another Earth. There was a fight, something called a cosmic cube. I went through a rift and ended up here." "Cosmic cube." The bat figure's voice carried analytical weight. "Not our terminology. Mother Box energy signature suggests new god involvement, but your tech," he gestured toward the shield. "That's not apocalyptian, not Kryptonian either. What is it?" "Vibranium, strongest metal on Earth." Steve raised the shield slightly. "I'm Captain America, Steve Rogers, and you are." A pause, assessment, then Batman. The name hung in the air between them like a challenge. Steve saw it now. This wasn't just a vigilante in a costume. This was Gotham's myth made flesh, a symbol designed to strike terror into the hearts of criminals. The parallel to his own iconography wasn't lost on him. They were both symbols, both soldiers in a war against darkness. But there was something else in Batman's stance, a wariness that went beyond tactical caution. This man didn't just fight criminals, he fought gods, and he'd learned not to trust anyone, especially not someone who dropped out of the sky with impossible metals and a story about dimensional rifts. "You fight like a soldier," Batman observed, his posture marginally relaxing. "Discipline, strategy, but that shield, you threw it at the ground to absorb impact, precise angle, physics that shouldn't work." "It always comes back," Steve said simply. "Magic. Science, very advanced metallurgy." Steve lowered the shield completely, a gesture of trust. "Look, Batman, I can see you're trying to figure out if I'm a threat. I'm not. Where I come from, I fought for freedom, for people who couldn't fight for themselves. I'm guessing from the way you operate, the symbol, the fear tactics, the tech, you do something similar here." Batman's cowl tilted slightly. "You said here. You understand you're in a different universe. I've dealt with parallel dimensions before. The cosmic cube warped reality. I should be fighting Red Skull right now, not standing in." Steve glanced around at the Gothic nightmare of Gotham's architecture. "What city is this?" "Gotham City." The name meant nothing to Steve, but the weight behind it was unmistakable. This place was wounded, poisoned. He could feel it in the air, see it in the desperate faces peering from broken windows, hear it in distant sirens that seemed to wail with futility. "You're analyzing," Batman said. "It wasn't a question." "Habit, strategic assessment, this city," Steve chose his words carefully. "It's dying. Every night." Batman's voice carried decades of exhaustion compressed into 2 words. "And every night we keep it from death. You said you fought for people who couldn't fight for themselves. That's what we do here. But this universe," the white eyes seemed to bore into Steve's soul. "This isn't a world of super soldiers and enhanced humans playing at heroics. Here, gods walk among us. Aliens who could level cities with a glance. Speedsters who break reality. Beings who have existed since the dawn of time. If you're staying, you need to understand that." Steve met his gaze steadily. "I've fought gods before. Not like ours." Batman reached for his utility belt and Steve tensed, but the Dark Knight only produced a small device. "I need to run an analysis on your shield, your biology, and I need you to come with me. There are others you'll need to meet." "Others? The Justice League?" Batman's voice carried a warning. "If you're telling the truth about being a hero, they'll want to assess you. If you're lying..." The threat hung unspoken but clear. Steve nodded slowly. He understood chains of command, organizational hierarchies, and he understood that in a universe of gods, there would be those who stood watch, leaders, protectors. The question was whether they were heroes or something else. "One thing first," Steve said. "You mentioned gods, aliens. Are they threats or allies?" Batman's silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. Then, both, and that's the problem. Before Steve could respond, the Batcomputer in Batman's cowl chimed softly. The Dark Knight's posture shifted, tension coiling like a spring. "Armed robbery in progress, 12 blocks north, heavy weapons." Steve's training kicked in automatically. "How many civilians?" 43 in the bank. Hostage situation." Batman was already moving toward a motorcycle that seemed to materialize from the shadows. "I work alone." "Not tonight." Steve's voice carried the authority of a man who'd led the Howling Commandos through hell and came back. "You said this universe has gods. I'm not one, but I am a soldier, and soldiers don't leave civilians in danger." Batman paused, studying him. Then something like approval flickered in those white eyes. "Keep up if you can." The Batsuck roared to life with a sound like controlled thunder. Steve ran, his super soldier serum pushing him to speeds that would leave Olympic athletes gasping. Batman accelerated, but not so fast that Steve couldn't follow, testing him, always testing. They moved through Gotham's arteries like antibodies fighting infection, and Steve saw the city's true face. Gargoyles leered from buildings that belonged in Gothic horror novels. Steam rose from grates like the breath of something buried and dying. Graffiti marked territory for gangs whose symbols spoke of violence and desperation. This wasn't just a crime. This was systematic rot. And yet people still lived here, fought here, survived here. That meant something. The bank loomed ahead, ornate architecture now scud by bullet holes and broken windows. Batman killed the engine 2 blocks out. Standard hostage protocol. I go in quietly. You. Create a distraction. Steve had run this playbook 100 times. Draw their fire, give you an opening. Batman's cowl tilted. You're tactical. I'm a soldier. Steve raised his shield. And I'm guessing you're about to see what Vibrenum can do. What happened next became legend in Gotham's criminal underworld. the night Captain America and Batman first fought side by side. Steve Rogers walked through the front door of Gotham First National Bank as he owned it, shield raised, voice carrying the authority of a man who'd faced down Hydra and the Red Skull. "Gentlemen, put down the weapons, you're surrounded." He wasn't, of course, but they didn't know that. Gunfire erupted. Bullets pinged off viburnum with sounds like bells tolling. Steve moved with practiced efficiency, shield throw, ricochet off 3 gunmen, catch, roll, sweep the legs of a 4th. No kills, just clean, precise takedowns that left criminals groaning on marble floors. And while they focused on the man with the shield, shadows came alive. Batman dropped from the ceiling like vengeance given form. His attacks were surgical, pressure points, nerve strikes, psychological warfare. Where Steve fought with the precision of a soldier, Batman fought with the cruelty of fear itself. In 90 seconds, it was over. Hostages huddled against walls, terrified but safe. Criminals were zip-tied and unconscious. Batman and Captain America stood in the wreckage, and Steve saw something shift in the Dark Knight's posture. Not quite trust, but recognition. "You're trained," Batman said simply. "So are you," Steve surveyed the scene. "No deaths, minimal civilian trauma, professional. You do this every night." "Every night that I'm here. Sometimes I'm not here. Sometimes I'm on the watchtower, or dealing with threats that make this look like a training exercise." Batman's voice carried weight. "Welcome to the Justice League's recruitment process, Captain Rogers. You just passed the first test." Steve's enhanced hearing caught sirens approaching. "Police." "Commissioner Gudden, good man, he'll handle this." Batman moved toward the shadows. "Come on, there's someone you need to meet. Someone who will decide if you're a hero or a threat." "Who?" Batman's voice carried something that might have been respect or warning. "Superman." If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. Hope shines brightest in the darkest night. They left Gotham as dawn threatened the horizon, not on the Batsuck but in something far more impressive. The Batplane rose from a hidden hangar with technology that made Steve's engineering-trained mind race with possibilities. Vertical takeoff, stealth capabilities, weapons systems that could probably level a city block. "Where are we going?" Steve asked, strapped into the co-pilot seat. Batman's hands moved across controls with practiced precision. "Metropolis, Superman City. He'll want to meet you, scan you, decide if you're a threat. And if he decides I am." The pause spoke volumes. Then Batman's voice carried a weight that chilled Steve's blood despite decades of combat experience. "Then I'll have to stop him. That's what I do. I'm the contingency, the one who plans for the day the gods fall." Steve looked at the Dark Knight with new understanding. This wasn't paranoia. This was a necessity. In a universe of gods, someone had to be willing to kill them if they turned. Someone had to carry that burden. It was the loneliest job Steve had ever seen. And he wondered, in this universe of gods and monsters, whether his shield and his ideals would be enough. Metropolis rose from the horizon like everything Gotham wasn't, gleaming towers of steel and glass that caught the morning sun and threw it back in defiant brilliance. Where Gotham festered in shadows, Metropolis soared in light. Where Gotham's architecture spoke of Gothic decay, Metropolis declared hope through Art Deco grandeur. Steve Rogers, who'd watched New York rise from Depression-era struggle to modern marvel, recognized the symbolism immediately. This wasn't just a city. This was a statement. "He built this," Batman said, reading Steve's expression with unnerving accuracy. "Not literally, but his presence shaped it. People came here because they believed in what he represented. Hope, tomorrow, the idea that someone would always catch you when you fell." "You sound skeptical," Steve observed. "I'm realistic." The Batplane descended toward what appeared to be a massive satellite complex outside the city proper. "Hope is a powerful weapon, but it's also dangerous. Because when hope becomes absolute, when people stop questioning the one who gives it to them, that's when tyranny begins, with the best of intentions. Steve considered the words carefully. He'd seen it himself, the Sokovia Accords, the conflict that tore the Avengers apart. Good people making impossible choices, each believing they were right. You're talking about checks and balances. I'm talking about contingencies. Batman's voice hardened. 3 years ago, in another timeline, Superman decided humanity needed to be saved from itself. He killed the Joker, established a regime, became a tyrant who meant well. Batman, that timeline's version of me, led an insurgency. Billions died before we corrected the timeline. The Batplane touched down with barely a whisper. Steve's tactical mind raced. You're telling me the hero who inspired this city could become a dictator? Not could, did in another reality. The multiverse is real here, Captain. Infinite Earths, infinite possibilities, and in many of them the heroes fall. Batman's white eyes fixed on Steve with intensity. That's why I need to know what you are. A man who inspires hope or a man who enforces it? Before Steve could respond, the hangar doors opened, and the woman who entered made Steve's breath catch, not from attraction, though she was stunningly beautiful, but from the sheer presence she radiated. She moved like a warrior, dressed in armor that mixed ancient Greek design with modern functionality. Sword at her hip, lasso coiled at her waist, tiara that somehow looked more like a weapon than an ornamentation. Batman, she said, her voice carrying an accent Steve couldn't quite place, ancient and eternal. You summoned us for an emergency. This is your emergency. A man with a shield. Diana, Batman exited the Batplane. Captain America, Steve Rogers, dimensional traveler from a parallel Earth, super soldier, tactical genius, fought alongside me in Gotham. I need the Trinity's assessment. Diana, Wonder Woman, Steve's mind supplied, studied him with eyes that had seen millennia. You carry yourself as a warrior, but there is something else. Wait, you have seen much death. World War II, Steve said simply, and everything after. I was frozen for 70 years, woke up to a world I barely recognized, kept fighting because that's what soldiers do. Frozen, her expression shifted to something like understanding. Stasis, like Pandora's box preserving what should have been lost. She stepped closer, and Steve realized she stood at his height, unusual for women in his experience, but then again, she radiated power that had nothing to do with physical stature. You are far from home, warrior, and you do not know if you will ever return. It wasn't a question. Steve nodded slowly. Then we shall see if you are worthy of the Justice League's trust. Diana's hand moved to her lasso. I am Diana of Themyscira, princess of the Amazons, daughter of Zeus, and I carry the lasso of truth. If you submit to it willingly, we will know your heart. Steve's tactical instincts screamed a warning. Mind control, interrogation, but he'd faced worse. And if these people, these gods, needed proof of his intentions, he'd give it. Do it. The golden rope settled around his chest with surprising gentleness. Warmth spread through Steve's body, not uncomfortable but impossible to resist. And then questions came, not from Diana's lips but from the lasso itself, pulling truth from his soul like water from a well. Why do you fight? Because someone has to stand up to bullies. Because power without conscience is tyranny. Because I've seen what happens when good men do nothing. Would you kill to protect the innocent? Steve's jaw tightened. The question cut to his core philosophy, the line he'd drawn and refused to cross, even when pragmatism demanded it. I've killed in war. I'm a soldier. But I don't execute. I don't become judge, jury, and executioner. The moment we decide some people don't deserve due process is the moment we become what we're fighting against. Even if that mercy costs innocent lives. Yes, the word tore from him. Even then, because the moment we compromise that principle, we lose what makes us heroes instead of tyrants. Diana's eyes widened slightly. The lasso released him, coiling back to her waist. He speaks truth, absolute truth. His conviction is, She turned to Batman. Unshakable, dangerous perhaps, but pure. Dangerous how? Steve demanded. You're questioning whether I'd kill someone like this Joker you mentioned, someone who murders innocents for entertainment. Yes, the voice came from above, not from the hangar but from the sky itself. Steve's combat instincts threw him into a defensive crouch, shield raised, before his rational mind processed what he was seeing. A man floated down from the ceiling, cape billowing despite the absence of wind. The symbol on his chest, a stylized S, caught the light like a beacon. Blue suit, red cape, boots that defied physics. And eyes, God, those eyes. They glowed with power that could level mountains but held something else. Sadness. Infinite, weary sadness. Captain Rogers, the man said, landing with impossible grace. I'm Superman, Clark Kent, and yes, I heard everything. Super hearing, it's both a gift and a curse. He extended his hand. Welcome to our Earth. Steve took the hand carefully, half expecting some test of strength. But Superman's grip was firm yet controlled, a man perpetually aware of his own power. You move like you could kill everyone in this room without breaking stride, but you choose not to. Every second of every day, Superman's smile didn't reach his eyes. Batman told you about the other timeline, the injustice timeline, where I became what I fought against. I killed the Joker after he tricked me into killing Lois, where I decided humanity needed to be saved from itself. The smile vanished. That timeline haunts me, Captain. Because I understand how it happened, how easy it would be to cross that line. Steve studied him, this god who chose restraint, but you don't. Because of people like Batman, Diana, the League, they remind me that the moment I start making decisions for humanity instead of with humanity, I become something else, a tyrant with good intentions. Superman's gaze intensified. Diana says you'd refuse to kill the Joker even knowing he'll escape and murder again. That troubles me. It should, Steve met his eyes steadily. Because the alternative troubles me more. The moment we decide some lives don't matter, we become the enemy. I've seen that road, seen where it leads, and I won't walk it. Even if it costs innocent lives. Even then, Steve's voice carried steel. Because once you cross that line, you can't come back. You become the thing you're fighting. The Red Skull thought he was saving humanity, too, through purification, through elimination of those he deemed unworthy. Every tyrant in history believed they were doing the right thing. Silence filled the hangar. 3 sets of eyes studied him. Batman's calculating, Diana's appraising, Superman's conflicted. Finally, Superman spoke. You're right and you're wrong, and that's what makes you interesting. He turned to Batman. You trust him. He fights clean, no kills, tactical brilliance, and something else. He makes people want to follow him, not through fear or power, but through example. Batman's voice carried grudging respect. He's what you'd be if you were human, Clark, what you'd have to be. High praise from the man with contingency plans to kill me. Superman's tone held dark humor. Then his gaze returned to Steve. We need to talk, really talk, about what you've seen, your Earth, your team. Because the fact that you're here, that boom tubes and cosmic cube energy intersected, suggests something bigger is happening. Diana stepped forward. The fates have been restless, the gods whisper of convergence, of timelines bleeding together. Her hand rested on her sword hilt. Your arrival may not be accidental, Captain Rogers. It may be a herald of something worse. Steve's tactical mind engaged immediately. You think someone brought me here deliberately? I think the multiverse doesn't breach without reason. Batman pulled up holographic displays, energy signatures, dimensional mapping, data that made Steve's head spin. The boom tube signature that brought you here originated from Apocalypse, Duxud's realm, but it was corrupted, mixed with energy I don't recognize, your cosmic cube. Duxud, Steve repeated. You mentioned him before. Who is he? The 3 heroes exchanged glances. Finally, Superman answered, and his voice carried the weight of worlds. Imagine Hutla. Imagine every tyrant in human history. Now give them the power of a god, immortality, and an obsession with destroying free will itself. Duxud seeks something called the anti-life equation, a mathematical proof that free will is meaningless, that life itself is meaningless. And if he finds it, Superman's voice trailed off. He could enslave the multiverse, Diana finished. Every living being, their minds and souls shackled to his will for eternity. We have fought him before. We will fight him again. It is inevitable as sunrise. Steve absorbed this. Red Skull, Thanos, Ultron. He'd faced world-ending threats before. But something in their voices, in the way they spoke of this Duxud, suggested a threat of entirely different magnitude. Then we prepare, Steve said simply. We plan, we train, and when he comes, we stop him. Just like that, Batman's voice carried something between skepticism and approval. Just like that, Steve straightened. I didn't ask to come here, but I'm here now, and I'm a soldier. Soldiers don't run from fights, especially when innocent lives hang in the balance. He met each of their gazes in turn. You wanted to know what I am. I'm a man who believes in standing up to bullies, regardless of their size, no matter how powerful, because the moment we stop standing, we've already lost. Superman's expression shifted, and for the first time since they'd met, he smiled, really smiled. Batman, Diana, I think we found our moral compass. We already have one, Batman said dryly. He's standing right here questioning every decision we make. Then we have two. Diana's hand extended toward Steve, not for a handshake but warrior to warrior, forearm to forearm. Welcome to the Justice League, Captain Rogers. May the gods grant you strength for what comes next. Steve clasped her forearm, feeling calluses that spoke of millennia of sword work. I don't need gods. I have something better. What's that? Superman asked. A shield and the will to use it. The watchtower materialized around them, teleportation technology that made Steve's stomach lurch. One moment in the hangar, the next in a massive space station orbiting Earth. Viewports showed the planet below, blue and green and achingly beautiful. And suddenly Steve understood the weight these people carried. They watched over an entire world. The command center bustled with activity. A red and gold blur resolved into a man in a Flash costume, grinning with manic energy. Recruit. Batman actually approved someone. Is this a sign of the apocalypse? Should I check for locusts? Flash Bari Ulan. Superman made introductions with practiced ease. Captain America, Steve Rogers. Captain America, oh man, that's such a cool name. Is it copyrighted? Can I use it? Wait, you're from a parallel Earth, right? Do they have Flash there? Is he cooler than me? Please say no. The speedster vibrated with barely contained energy. Bari, Batman's voice carried a warning. Right, sorry, social boundaries, working on it. But the Flash's grin didn't diminish. Seriously though, welcome to the League. We're the good guys, mostly, sometimes. Batman's morally gray, but the rest of us try. A massive figure approached, half man, half machine technology integrated with flesh in ways that made Steve think of Hydra experiments gone right. Cyborg, Victor Stone. I'm reading interesting energy signatures from your shield. That's not any metal in our periodic table. Vibrenum, Steve explained. From my Earth, absorbs kinetic energy, indestructible as far as we can tell. Fascinating. Cyborg's mechanical eye glowed. I'm interfacing with the watchtower systems. We've been monitoring dimensional instabilities. Whatever brought you here tore a hole in the multiverse roughly the size of, he paused. Oh no. Everyone tensed. Superman moved to the main Vyuskron. Vuk. Energy signature. Boom tube opening, but not normal, it's massive. And the origin point is, Cyborg's voice dropped to horror. Apocalypse. Red warning lights bathed the command center. An alarm, not loud but insistent, pulsed through the station. And on the Vyuskron, Steve saw something that made his combat-hardened blood run cold. A hole in space. Fire and darkness are pouring through, and shapes, thousands of them, armored, winged, screaming things that moved with insect-like precision. Parademons, Batman said flatly. Darkseid's shock troops, this is an invasion. Superman's eyes glowed red. How many? Thousands, tens of thousands, descending on Metropolis, Gotham, Central City, simultaneous strikes on every major population center. Cyborg's voice carried desperation. This isn't a raid, this is war. Diana drew her sword, the blade singing as it cleared the scabbard. Then we answer with war. Flash, evacuate civilians. Cyborg, coordinate with emergency services. Superman, Clark, the skis are yours. And me? Steve asked, already knowing the answer. Batman looked at him, and for the first time, Steve saw something like grim approval. You said you're a soldier. Prove it. We need to hold the line until reinforcements arrive. Can you handle leading ground forces against alien shock troops? Steve Rogers, Captain America, raised his shield, and his voice carried the authority of a man who'd led armies through hell and brought them home. I can do this all day. The teleporter engaged, and Earth's newest defender stepped into his first true battle in a universe of gods. Metropolis burned. Steve Rogers materialized in the heart of Centennial Park, where families had been feeding ducks and children had been flying kites mere minutes ago. Now the sky writhed with winged horrors, their shrieks splitting the air like tearing metal. Parademons, Darkseid's foot soldiers, descended in swarms, their crimson eyes glowing with mindless hunger, their clawed hands reaching for anything that moved. The shield left Steve's hand before conscious thought caught up with trained instinct. Vibranium sang through air, connecting with a parademon's skull with a sound like a church bell tolling. The creature spiraled downward, taking 3 more with it. The shield ricocheted off a lamppost, caught a 5th demon mid-flight, and returned to Steve's hand as civilians scattered behind him, running for subway entrances and reinforced buildings. Get 2 shelters. Steve's voice cut through panic with parade ground authority. Emergency personnel form perimeter. Civils, stay low and move fast. A blur of red and blue streaked overhead. Superman, moving at speeds that bent physics, plucking parademons from the sky like a farmer harvesting wheat. Each impact released a thunderclap. Each movement saved lives. But for every demon Superman destroyed, 10 more poured through the boom tube portal that hung over the city like a wound in reality. Batman's voice crackled in Steve's ear. The Dark Knight had outfitted him with a League communicator during the teleport sequence. Captain, we need coordination. These things fight like insects, swarm tactics, overwhelming numbers. Military experience recommended. Already on it, Steve assessed the battlefield with decades of tactical training. Parademons attacked in waves, but their pattern revealed weakness. They prioritized isolated targets over defended positions, herd animals despite the armor and technology. Batman, I need elevated positions. Snipers if you have them. Flash, I need you running interference, pull their attention, keep them chasing. Diana, wherever their concentration is thickest, that's where you hit. You command Amazonian princesses now. Diana's voice carried an amused challenge, but Steve heard compliance underneath. Thunder cracked as she descended from the watchtower, her sword already singing. I command soldiers, Steve corrected, throwing his shield into another cluster of demons. And right now, we're all soldiers. The shield returned, always returned. 3 more demons fell, their tech armor no match for Vibranium's perfect physics. Steve moved through the chaos like he'd been born to it, because he had been. Not in Brooklyn, but on battlefields where death came screaming from the sky, and good men held impossible lines because retreat meant innocents died. A woman stumbled, child clutched to her chest, parademons circling like sharks scenting blood. Steve crossed the distance in heartbeats, shield raised. The first demon's claws scraped across Vibranium, sparking but failing to penetrate. Steve's fist, enhanced by super soldier serum, drove upward into its jaw, snapping the creature's head back with lethal force. He didn't like killing, but this wasn't murder, this was war. The The second demon learned what happened when you attacked Captain America's left side. The shield edge, razor-sharp despite its defensive design, took the creature's arm off at the elbow. The third demon died to a shield throw that would have made the Howling Commandos cheer. Perfect angle, perfect spin, perfect return. "Go," Steve ordered the woman. 3 blocks south, subway station, move. She ran. The child's wails faded into the distance. 1 life saved. Hundreds more are still at risk. "Steve." Superman's voice carried strain, something Steve wouldn't have thought possible from a man who could juggle planets. "The portal, it's growing. Cyborg estimates we have maybe 30 minutes before something bigger comes through." "Bigger than this?" "Much bigger. These are scouts, shock troops. Darkseid sends them to soften resistance before." Superman's voice cut off as an explosion rocked downtown Metropolis. "Before that, Steve, we have a problem." The building hadn't just fallen. It had been deliberately demolished, brought down with precision that spoke of engineering knowledge or terrible power. And from the rubble emerged something that made the parademons look like annoying insects. The creature stood 12 feet tall, armored in black metal that seemed to drink light. Its eyes burned with the same red glow as the smaller demons, but these eyes held intelligence. Cruel, calculating intelligence. It carried a weapon, part staff, part energy cannon, that hummed with power. Steve's enhanced senses are recognized as lethal. "Elite parademon," Batman's voice held grim recognition. "Enhanced strength, tactical reasoning equipped with apocalyptic weapons tech. Don't engage alone." Steve was already moving. The elite turned its glowing eyes toward a group of police officers trying to establish a defensive perimeter. Its weapon charged with an ascending whine. Steve's tactical mind calculated trajectories, angles, probable outcomes. The officers wouldn't survive the blast. They'd die trying to protect civilians, because that's what good people did. They stood against impossible odds because someone had to. Not today. The shield left Steve's hand with all the force super soldier serum could generate. It covered 50 yards in a blink, struck the elite's weapon just as it fired. The blast deflected upward, scorching sky instead of flesh. The elite roared, surprise, anger, recognition of threat, and turned its full attention to Steve. Good, that's what he'd wanted. "You want to fight soldiers?" Steve's voice carried across the battlefield. "Let me show you what a soldier looks like." The elite charged, 12 feet of armored death moving with speed that belied its size. Steve stood his ground, shield raised, legs planted. When they'd trained him for the super soldier program, Dr. Erskine had said something Steve never forgot. "A weak man knows the value of strength, knows the value of power." Steve knew his value, and he knew this thing bled. The elite staff struck the shield with enough force to crater the pavement. Shockwaves rippled outward. Steve's enhanced physiology absorbed punishment that would have liquefied normal men, redistributed the kinetic energy, and held. The elite struck again, and again. Each impact is like a hammer blow. Each one is testing Steve's absolute limit. But Steve Rogers had spent 70 years frozen in ice, dreaming of one more fight, one more chance to stand against tyranny. This wasn't the Red Skull or Hydra or even Thanos. This was something worse, a soldier of a god who wanted to eliminate free will itself. No, not on Steve's watch. The elite overextended on its fourth strike, confident in its superior strength. Steve saw the opening, the same opening Bucky Barnes had exploited against the Winter Soldier, the same weakness every overconfident opponent eventually revealed. Weight shifted forward, center of gravity exposed, vulnerable. Steve dropped low, shield angled. The elite staff passed overhead, and Steve drove upward with every ounce of super soldier strength, shield edge first, into the creature's armored knee joint. Apocalyptic armor was strong. Vibranium was stronger. The joint shattered. The elite screamed, a sound of rage and agony. It toppled and Steve was already moving, already striking. shield to the helmet twice, 3 times. The armor cracked, the red glow dimmed, and the elite parademon fell silent. Steve stood over the corpse, breathing hard. Around him, parademons had paused their assault, their insect minds processing what they'd witnessed. One of their champions had fallen, to a human, to something that shouldn't have been able to threaten them. "Well," Flash's voice carried over the calm, impressed despite circumstances. "That was the most Captain America thing I've ever seen, and I literally just met you." Parlor trick. Diana descended beside Steve, her sword dripping ichor from a dozen demons. "But effective. The parademons fear you now. They recognize strength." She studied him with ancient eyes. "You have the heart of a warrior, Steve Rogers, a true warrior. Not one who fights for glory, but one who fights because fighting is necessary." Compliments later. Batman materialized from the shadows because of course he did. The portal's stabilizing. Something's coming through, something big. Steve looked up at the boom tube, which wound in reality that continued pouring horrors into Metropolis. And as he watched, the portal expanded. Fire and darkness swirled, and a shape began to emerge, massive, armored, radiating power that made Steve's enhanced instincts scream warnings. "Is that?" Steve began. "No," Superman landed beside them, his face grim. "That's not Darkseid, that's one of his lieutenants, a Fury. Female Furies are Darkseid's elite guard, and if he sent one here," Superman's eyes glowed red, preparing for combat, "it means he wants to test Earth's defenses, to see if we're worth conquering or if we should simply be destroyed." The figure that emerged from the portal stood tall and terrible. Female form, yes, but nothing human about the power she radiated. Armor that seemed forged from darkness itself. Eyes that burned with fanatical devotion. And in her hands, weapons that hummed with energy Steve recognized as planet-killing power. "I am Granny Goodness," the figure announced, her voice carrying across Metropolis like a prophet declaring damnation. "I am the voice of Darkseid. I am the hammer that breaks worlds. And I bring a message from the Lord of Apocalypse to the Justice League and their new champion." Her burning gaze fixed on Steve. "You who defeated my elite parademon, you who carry a shield and speak of justice, Darkseid sees you, knows you, and he is curious." Granny Goodness smiled, and the expression held no warmth, only the promise of suffering. "He wishes to test whether your spirit is worth breaking, whether your will is strong enough to make you worthy of the anti-life equation." Steve stepped forward, shield raised. "Tell Darkseid I'm not interested in whatever equation he's peddling, and if he wants to test me, he can come down here himself instead of sending messengers." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the parademons stopped their assault, hovering in midair, waiting. Then Granny Goodness laughed, long and cruel and delighted. "Oh, you foolish, brave little soldier. You do not demand an audience with Darkseid. You do not challenge the Lord of Apocalypse. You do not," she paused, head tilting as if listening to voices Steve couldn't hear. When she spoke again, her voice carried shock. "He hears you. Darkseid himself hears your challenge, and he is pleased." The boom tube portal pulsed, not expanding but changing. The red darkness gave way to something worse, gray, lifeless energy that seemed to drain color from reality itself. And Steve felt it, a presence, vast and terrible and infinite. Something was looking through the portal directly at him. "You interest him," Granny Goodness whispered, and for the first time Steve heard fear in her voice, fear of her own master. "You who should be nothing, an insect, a spark of will in an uncaring universe. Yet you stand against inevitability itself. You refuse to kneel." "I don't kneel to tyrants," Steve said simply. The presence in the portal intensified, and Steve heard it, not with his ears but with something deeper, a voice that spoke directly to the core of his being. "You are a soldier, I am war. You are a symbol, I am inevitability. You are hope, I am the end of hope. We shall meet, Captain of America, and on that day you will understand the truth. Free will is a lie. Life is meaningless, and all you fight for will crumble to ash in my hands." The presence withdrew. The portal began to collapse, pulling parademons and Granny Goodness back to Apocalypse. The Fury's expression was unreadable as she faded. "He grants you reprieve," she called out as the portal swallowed her. "Time to prepare, time to gather your strength, because when Darkseid comes, when he truly comes, not even your Justice League will save you. Not even your symbol will matter. You will kneel or you will die. There is no third option." The boom tube sealed with a sound like reality sighing in relief. Suddenly, Metropolis was silent save for fires crackling and civilians emerging from shelters. The parademons were gone. The immediate threat had passed. But Steve knew, with certainty born from decades of combat, this was just the beginning. "Well," Flash said into the silence, "that was ominous. Anyone else feel like we just got called out by an actual god?" "Darkseid isn't a god," Batman said flatly. "He's something worse. Gods can be reasoned with. Darkseid is a force, an inevitability, and he just declared interest in Captain America specifically." Diana sheathed her sword, studying Steve with an unreadable expression. "You challenged him. No mortal has done so and survived. The fact that he granted reprieve instead of killing you immediately," she trailed off. "What?" Steve demanded. "It means he sees you as a worthy opponent," Superman finished, his voice heavy. "Which means when he comes, and he will come, he'll come for you, specifically, to break you, to prove that even the most incorruptible symbol can be made to kneel." Steve looked at his shield, vibranium stained with parademon ichor, thought about the voice he'd heard, the presence, the absolute certainty in Granny Goodness's words. Then he thought about the civilians who'd survived because the Justice League stood between them and annihilation. Thought about the woman with her child, running to safety while Steve held the line. "Let him come," Steve said quietly. "I've faced down the Red Skull, Thanos, every bully in history who thought might made right. Darkseid is just another tyrant with delusions of godhood, and tyrants all bleed the same when you hit them hard enough." "Captain," Cyborg approached, his mechanical components humming. "I pulled data from the boom tube signature before it closed. Whatever brought you here, it wasn't an accident. The cosmic cube energy, it was keyed specifically to draw you across dimensions. Someone wanted you here." "Darkseid," Batman's voice carried cold calculation. "Maybe, or someone who knew Darkseid was planning this assault. Someone who thought Earth needed a soldier who couldn't be corrupted. Cyborg's human, I met Steve's. The question is, was it friend or enemy who brought you?" Steve considered the question, then dismissed it. "Doesn't matter, I'm here now. And whether it was an accident, fate, or someone's plan, the result is the same. People need to be protected. Darkseid needs to be stopped. And I'm a soldier. Soldiers don't worry about why they're on the battlefield. They focus on winning." Superman extended his hand. "Then welcome to the Justice League officially, Captain Rogers. Though I wish your first day didn't involve an apocalyptic warlord declaring personal vendetta against you." Steve shook the offered hand. "If it were easy, it wouldn't be worth doing." As the League began coordinating cleanup operations, as emergency services flooded into Metropolis to tend the wounded and repair the damage, Steve Rogers stood in Centennial Park and looked up at the sky. Somewhere beyond those stars, Darkseid waited, planned, prepared to return with force enough to break worlds. Let him come. Steve had spent a lifetime fighting impossible odds. He'd faced down the Red Skull when Hydra controlled Europe, stood against Thanos when half the universe turned to dust, fought battles that logic said couldn't be won, shouldn't be won. But Steve Rogers, Captain America, had a gift. Not super soldier serum or vibranium shield or tactical genius. No, his gift was simpler and far more dangerous to tyrants. He knew how to inspire hope, and hope in the end was the only thing tyrants truly feared. Because hope meant resistance. Hope meant refusal to kneel. Hope meant that even against gods and inevitability and the heat death of free will itself, someone would stand and say, "No, not today, not ever." Darkseid wanted to test if Steve's will could be broken. Good, Steve Rogers couldn't wait to show him the answer. The Watchtower's war room thrummed with tension 3 days after Metropolis burned. Steve Rogers stood before a holographic display of Earth, watching red markers bloom across continents like infection spreading through healthy tissue. Each marker represented a boom tube incursion. Each one meant Darkseid was probing, testing, searching for weaknesses in humanity's defenses. 37 breaches in 72 hours, Cyborg reported, his mechanical voice carrying exhaustion even technology couldn't mask. Parademons, elite guards. Yesterday, 3 more Furies manifested in Kondak. Black Adam handled it, but barely. Darkseid is escalating. Batman studied tactical projections with the focus of a man who'd spent decades preparing for exactly this scenario. He's mapping our response times, learning our patterns, building a strategic profile. His white eyes fixed on Steve. And he's watching you specifically, Captain. Every incursion within 50 miles of your position draws triple the forces. Steve absorbed this without flinching. He'd spent the past 3 days in combat: Gotham, Central City, Coast City. Wherever boom tubes opened, wherever parademons descended, Steve Rogers and his shield were there. Fighting, holding lines, buying time for evacuations. His body ached despite super soldier endurance. His shield bore scorch marks from apocalyptic energy weapons. But he hadn't stopped. Soldiers didn't stop. "He's obsessed," Diana observed, her warrior's instinct recognizing the pattern. "Darkseid sees you as a symbol, and symbols are what he destroys first. Break the symbol, break the spirit of resistance." "Let him try," Steve's voice carried steel. "I've been a symbol before. I know the weight, I know the cost, and I know symbols only break when the people carrying them give up." Superman floated near the viewport, silhouetted against Earth's blue curve. He hadn't spoken in 10 minutes, unusual for Clark Kent, whose optimism usually filled silences like sunlight. Finally, he turned, and Steve saw something in his expression that chilled his super soldier blood. Doubt. "Steve," Superman said carefully, "we need to talk about the Joker." The non sequitur jarred everyone. Batman's posture shifted infinitesimally, the Dark Knight going on guard. Diana's hand drifted toward her sword hilt. Flash, who'd been vibrating nervously in the corner, went absolutely still. "What about him?" Steve asked, though his tactical mind was already racing ahead, connecting threads, seeing the pattern. "He escaped Arkham, again, 47 hours ago." Batman's voice was flat, factual, deliberately empty of emotion. "He has hostages, 234 people in Gotham Stadium, and he's issued demands." Steve's stomach sank. "What kind of demands?" "He wants to meet you." Superman's words fell like stones. "Specifically, Captain America, the Boy Scout from another universe, he called you. He says he's fascinated by someone who still believes in absolute morality when gods walk the earth. Says he wants to test your convictions." "It's a trap," Flash said unnecessarily. "Of course it's a trap." Batman pulled up holographic feeds: Gotham Stadium, packed with terrified civilians, explosive devices wired throughout, and at the center of it all, a figure in a purple suit and green hair, smiling at security cameras like they were old friends. "But that doesn't matter. He has hostages, and he's given us 6 hours before he starts killing them. Once every 10 minutes until Captain America walks through the front door." Steve studied the Joker's image. Even through digital recreation, the madness radiated like heat. This wasn't the calculated cruelty of Red Skull or the cosmic nihilism of Thanos. This was something purer, more primal. Chaos given human form, testing the universe's moral foundations for the sheer joy of watching them crack. "You can't go," Diana said flatly. "The Joker is not a rational opponent. He cannot be reasoned with, cannot be negotiated with. He exists only to prove that morality is a joke, that anyone can be corrupted given proper pressure." Which is exactly why I have to go. Steve met her ancient gaze steadily. Because if I don't, he proves his point. Those symbols are hollow, that morality bends when the stakes get high enough, that even Captain America will let innocents die rather than face personal risk. It's not about personal risk. Superman's voice carried the weight of experience, of choices that still haunted him. Steve, you need to understand what the Joker is. I've fought Darkseid. I've faced Doomsday. I've stood against cosmic threats that could end reality itself, and none of them terrifies me the way the Joker does. The admission hung in the air. Superman, who could juggle planets, admitting fear of a human in clown makeup. Because Darkseid wants to conquer, Superman continued. Doomsday wants to destroy, but the Joker, he wants to prove that everything we fight for is meaningless, that one bad day can turn anyone into him, that morality, justice, hope, they're all just constructs we use to pretend the universe isn't random chaos. Superman's eyes glowed faintly with barely contained power, and he's very, very good at proving his point. Not with me. Steve's voice carried absolute certainty. I've had bad days, woke up 70 years after I should have died, everyone I knew was dead or dying. Watched Bucky, my best friend, become a brainwashed assassin. Saw half the universe turn to dust because I couldn't stop Thanos. Bad days don't make you like the Joker. They reveal who you always were underneath. Batman's cowl tilted slightly. You think you're incorruptible. No, Steve met the Dark Knight's hidden gaze. I think I'm a man who's made a choice. Every day I wake up and choose to be Captain America, to stand for something. And maybe that's naive in a universe of gods and monsters. Maybe it makes me a relic, but it's all I have. It's all any of us have, the choice to stand up or stand down, to hold the line or let it break. Inspirational speech. The new voice came from the war room entrance, rough, filtered through a voice modulator, carrying years of cigarette smoke and Gotham's particular brand of cynicism. A figure in a red helmet stepped inside, weapons bristling from a tactical harness. But speeches don't stop the Joker. Bullets do. And I should know. I died proving it. Red Hood, Batman's voice carried warning. Jason. Bruce. The Red Hood's helmet tilted toward Batman. You called me in as consultant. So here's my consultation. The Joker cannot be redeemed, cannot be reformed. Every time we catch him, put him in Arkham, pretend the system works, he escapes. And people die. Hundreds of people, good people, innocent people, because we're too noble to do what's necessary. Steve studied this Red Hood. Jason Todd, his enhanced hearing had caught Batman's real name. Former Robin, killed by the Joker, resurrected, radicalized. Now operating in the gray spaces, where Batman's rules didn't reach. You want me to kill him, Steve said, not a question. I want you to be realistic. Red Hood's weapons hummed. You're a soldier, right? You've killed in war, you understand tactical necessity. The Joker has murdered thousands. He will murder thousands more. He exists to prove morality is a joke, so prove him wrong. Put a bullet in his skull and save every future victim. The silence stretched. Steve felt every eye on him, the Justice League, gods and heroes and warriors waiting to see how Captain America would answer. No, Steve said simply. People will die. Red Hood's voice rose. He'll escape again, he always escapes. And their blood will be on your hands, on all our hands, because we were too cowardly to make the hard choice. It's not cowardice. Steve's voice remained steady. It's a principle. The moment we decide some people don't deserve due process, don't deserve trial, don't deserve the very justice we claim to represent, that's the moment we become what we're fighting against. Principles don't bring back dead children. Red Hood slammed his fist against the table. I know. I was one of them. The Joker beat me to death with a crowbar while Batman was too late, while the system that should have executed that monster after his first 100 victims kept giving him second chances. And you want to lecture me about principles? Steve met his gaze, or where his gaze would be behind the helmet. I'm sorry for what happened to you, truly. No one should endure that. But Jason, killing the Joker won't bring you peace. It won't undo your death. It'll just prove his point. that we're all one bad day away from becoming him. Maybe some of us already are. Red Hood's voice dropped to something dangerous. Maybe some of us crossed that line and found the view was clearer on the other side. Jason, Batman's voice carried decades of pain. Stand down. You don't get to order me anymore, Bruce. That died when you let the Joker live. Red Hood turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. Captain America, when you walk into that stadium and the Joker offers you the choice, save one person or save 10, kill him or let innocents die, remember this conversation. Remember that principles are luxuries paid for with other people's blood. He vanished into the shadows, leaving only the echo of hard truths. Steve exhaled slowly. He's wrong. Is he? Superman's question carried genuine curiosity, not challenge. Steve, I need you to understand something about this universe, about Earth. We've had heroes for generations. We've fought every conceivable threat. And the Joker remains because we won't cross that line, because Batman won't let us. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes, I wonder if Jason is right, if our nobility is just elaborate cowardice. It's not. Steve's conviction didn't waver. Because the moment we start executing villains without trial, we become judge, jury, and executioner. We become tyrants, maybe benevolent tyrants, maybe tyrants who mean well, but tyrants nonetheless. And that's what Darkseid is counting on, that will compromise our principles in the name of pragmatism. That will become him. Batman moved to the viewport, cape pooling around him like liquid shadow. The Joker killed Jason, paralyzed Barbara Gordon, murdered my second Robin's parents in front of him, destroyed thousands of lives. And every night I stand over him in Arkham and think about how easy it would be. One pressure point, one precise strike, end it forever. But you don't, Steve said. No, Batman turned, and Steve saw something raw behind the cowl. Because the moment I cross that line, I can never come back. The moment Batman becomes executioner, Gotham loses what little hope it has left. Because if even the Dark Knight compromises his principles, what chance does anyone else have? Diana stepped forward, warrior's wisdom in ancient eyes. The Joker will test you, Steve Rogers. He will offer impossible choices. Save the child or save the crowd, kill him or watch innocents die. And whatever you choose, he will twist it to prove morality is meaningless. Then I'll prove him wrong. Steve picked up his shield, running his thumb along scorch marks from 3 days of apocalyptic combat. Not with speeches, with action, by showing him that some people don't break, that some principles don't bend, that symbols matter because we choose to make them matter. Flash vibrated into visibility. So what's the plan? Walk in there, let the Joker monologue, hope he doesn't blow everyone up. No. Steve's tactical mind engaged, seeing angles, probabilities, risks. We treat this like any hostage situation. I go in the front door, keep his attention. You, Flash, use your speed to evacuate hostages from secondary exits. Diana, you're outside, ready to breach if things go south. Superman, your backup, heat vision on standby to disable explosives. Batman. I know my role. The Dark Knight's voice carried grim approval. I'm the contingency, the one who stops you if you actually try to kill him. Steve met his gaze. You won't need to. We'll see. Batman pulled up tactical maps of Gotham Stadium. The Joker has the place wired like a Christmas tree, explosives at every exit, dead man switch in his hand. The moment his heart stops, everyone dies. Classic. Steve studied the layout with a soldier's eyes. Which means we can't kill him even if we wanted to. He's turned his own life into leverage. Exactly. Batman's finger traced entry points. You'll have one shot at talking him down, at convincing him to release the hostages voluntarily. Can you do it? Steve thought about 70 years frozen in ice, about Bucky's blank stare as the Winter Soldier, about Tony Stark's face when Steve told him he'd known about his parents and said nothing, about watching Peter Parker crumble to dust in his arms. Bad days, terrible days, days that should have broken him. But Steve Rogers was still here, still standing, still chose to be Captain America every morning when he woke. Yeah, Steve said quietly. I can do it. 2 hours later, Steve stood outside Gotham Stadium. Rain fell in sheets, because of course, Gotham rain fell during moments of maximum dramatic tension. His shield caught the glow of police spotlights, scattering reflections across wet pavement. Behind the barricades, GCPD Commissioner Gordon orchestrated evacuation routes while Batman prowled rooftops, invisible as a shadow. Steve's comm crackled. Hostages are terrified but alive, Cyborg reported from overhead surveillance. Joker's positioned center stadium. You'll be exposed from all angles. No cover. Understood. Steve started walking, 1 foot in front of the other, soldier's pace. The stadium entrance loomed ahead, emergency doors wedged open, showing darkness beyond. Darkness and madness, and 234 innocent people who believed Captain America could save them. No pressure. Steve crossed the threshold. Emergency lighting cast everything in sickly green. And at the center of Gotham Stadium, surrounded by hostages zip-tied to seats, standing atop a platform wired with enough explosives to level city blocks, the Joker waited. He looked exactly like the photographs, purple suit, green hair, smile too wide for sanity. But seeing him in person carried a different weight. This wasn't just madness, this was weaponized chaos, philosophy given form and committed to proving the universe was a joke. Captain America, the Joker's voice echoed through the stadium, delighted as a child on Christmas morning. Oh, this is wonderful, the universe's Boy Scout come to save the day. Tell me, Captain, do they have jokes on your Earth? Or is everything there as tediously noble as you? Steve walked forward slowly, shield ready but not raised, non-threatening, diplomatic. Let the hostages go, Joker. Whatever point you're trying to make, it doesn't require innocent deaths. Doesn't it, though? The Joker capered across his platform, dead man's switch visible in pale hand. That's the fundamental disagreement between us, Captain. You think innocence matters. You think symbols and morality and choosing to stand up every day make you special. But I know the truth. What truth? Steve kept him talking, kept his attention. Somewhere in the shadows, Flash was already moving, calculating routes, preparing to extract hostages at super speed the moment opportunity presented. That we're all one bad day away from becoming me. The Joker's smile never wavered. That morality is just a construct to pretend the universe cares, that your precious principles are a joke, and I'm the only one honest enough to laugh. You're wrong, Steve's voice carried across the stadium. I've had bad days, days that should have broken me. They didn't. Didn't they? The Joker tilted his head, studying Steve like a fascinating specimen. Tell me about the ice, Captain. 70 years frozen while everyone you loved died. Didn't that break something inside you? Didn't you wake up just a little bit mad at the universe? Steve's jaw tightened. The Joker had done his homework. Or how about your friend? Bucky, was it? Turned into a weapon made to kill, all while you played hero. Didn't that make you question if any of it mattered? It matters because we choose to make it matter. Steve stepped closer. Yes, I've had bad days. Yes, the universe is cruel and random and cares nothing for justice. But that's exactly why we have to care. Because if we don't stand for something, if we don't choose to be better than the chaos, then you're right. Then morality is meaningless. The Joker's smile flickered, just for a second, then returned wider, more manic. Oh, you're good, you almost believe it. But here's the fun part, Captain, here's the joke. He pressed a button. Screens flickered to life around the stadium, live feeds from across Gotham, and on every screen, boom tubes opened. Parademons poured through in waves, dozens of locations, hundreds of demons. Darkseid is attacking Gotham, the Joker giggled. Right now, while you're here talking to me, while you're choosing to save these 200 people, thousands are dying. So here's your choice, Captain Moral Absolute, stay here and save these hostages. Or leave them to die and go fight Darkseid's army. You can't do both. You're not a god. You're just a man with a shield. Steve's blood ran cold. Through his comm, he heard Batman's voice, controlled but strained. Confirmed. Multiple incursions. East End, Robbinsville, Diamond District. It's a coordinated assault. Steve, Superman's voice. We need you, we need everyone. Darkseid has committed serious forces. We can't hold without you. The Joker watched Steve's face with malicious glee. Tick-tock, Captain, choose. Save the few or save the many. Compromise your principles or let people die. Either way, you lose. Either way, I prove morality is the joke I always said it was. Steve looked at the hostages, terrified faces, children crying, people who'd believed in symbols and hope, and the idea that heroes would save them. Then he looked at the feeds, watching parademons tear through Gotham streets. The Joker was right, he couldn't do both. But Captain America wasn't just Steve Rogers. Captain America was an idea, a symbol, and symbols didn't compromise. Steve Rogers raised his shield and looked the Joker dead in his mad eyes. No, he said simply, and then he threw the shield. The shield sang through the air, not toward the Joker, but toward the ceiling support structure directly above the platform. Vibranium struck reinforced steel with the precision of a weapon that never missed, never faltered, never failed to return. The beam buckled, warning alarms shrieked, and in the half-second of chaos that followed, everything happened at once. Flash became lightning incarnate, moving at speeds that turned reality into suggestion. He touched each hostage in sequence, 234 people in the time it took Steve's shield to complete its arc, phasing their zip ties at the molecular level, breaking bonds without breaking skin. The hostages found themselves suddenly free, suddenly being pulled toward exits by the fastest man alive. Diana crashed through the stadium's eastern wall, her battle cry shaking foundations. Lasso of truth already spinning, she swept through the platform area like divine wrath, golden rope binding explosives, severing detonators, unmaking the Joker's carefully constructed death trap with Amazonian precision. Superman descended from above, heat vision carving intricate patterns through the air, not attacking, dismantling. Each pulse of red light melted a wire, disabled a trigger, neutralized components with surgical accuracy born from super senses that could see electrons dancing. And Batman was already inside, had been inside, hidden in shadows where even the Joker's paranoia couldn't detect him. The Dark Knight emerged from darkness itself, moving with violence that was almost beautiful in its economy. 3 precise strikes, and the dead man's switch was flying from the Joker's hand, caught midair by a batarang that pinned it safely to a wall. The Joker stared at his empty hand, at the scattered hostages, at the disarmed explosives, at Captain America, whose shield had returned to his grasp with the inevitability of sunrise. No, the Joker whispered, then louder, manic energy building. No, that's not how this works. You're supposed to choose. You're supposed to prove morality is just pragmatism wearing a cape. You're supposed to. I'm supposed to be Captain America, Steve interrupted, walking forward with measured steps. And Captain America doesn't compromise. Not with terrorists, not with monsters, and definitely not with clowns who think nihilism is philosophy. The Joker's face twisted, rage, confusion, something that might have been respect flickering behind madness. But Darkseid, the parademons, Gotham is burning. Gotham's been burning for decades. Batman's voice came from behind the Joker, gravelly and certain. One more night won't make a difference. And if you thought a few dozen parademons would pull the Justice League away from hostages, you underestimated us. We're heroes. We save people. That's what we do. Besides, Flash added, vibrating to a stop beside Steve, did you really think we couldn't handle both? We're the Justice League, we multitask. Through Steve's calm, Cyborg's voice carried satisfaction. Parademon assault terminated. Turns out they weren't actually Darkseid's forces, just holograms and drones. Sophisticated ones, but technological. The Joker played you, Cap, or tried to. Steve studied the Joker, seeing past the makeup and madness to the desperate truth underneath. You're working with Darkseid. Working is such a loaded term. The Joker's smile returned, manic and unrepentant. Let's say we have mutual interests. He wants to prove free will is meaningless. I want to prove morality is a joke. Seemed like a match made in, well, not heaven. Definitely not heaven. Diana's lasso snaked out, binding the Joker before he could move. Golden rope pulsed with truth-compelling magic. Speak. What is Darkseid's plan? The Joker struggled, then laughed, but the laughter held pain now. The lasso of truth didn't just compel words, it compelled honesty. And honesty hurt people like the Joker more than any physical torture. He's coming, the Joker gasped, fighting each word. In 3 days, full invasion, not scouts or tests. The real thing, Apocalypse itself, will boom tube into Earth's orbit. And he'll bring, the Joker's face contorted with genuine fear. He'll bring the anti-life equation. He found it. He actually found it. Silence fell like a curtain. Even Superman's perpetual optimism dimmed at those words. That's impossible, Batman said flatly. The anti-life equation is theoretical, a mathematical proof that free will doesn't exist. If it were real, if someone possessed it, then every living being in the universe would become a slave, Diana finished, her voice carrying the weight of gods who'd spoken of this exact nightmare. Minds shackled, souls bound. All resistance is meaningless because the equation would prove, mathematically and absolutely, that choice itself is an illusion. The Joker giggled despite the lasso's pain. And he wants to test it on Earth first, on the Justice League, on symbols and heroes and Boy Scouts who think they matter. He wants to break Captain America specifically, the man who's never compromised, who stands for absolute morality in a relativistic universe. Break the symbol, break humanity's hope. It's beautiful, really. Poetic. Steve absorbed this. 3 days. 72 hours until Darkseid brought the end of free will itself. Until the tyrant who'd been watching him, testing him, planning for him finally made his move. Why tell us? Superman demanded. Why warn us? Because I want you to fight back. The Joker's eyes glittered with mad joy. Because watching you struggle against inevitability is funnier than watching you surrender. Because even if you lose, especially if you lose, the joke is better. The punchline is sweeter. You'll stand there with your shields and your symbols and your precious morality, and none of it will matter. The equation will prove I was right all along, that everything you fight for is cosmic joke. Batman's cowl tilted toward Steve. He's telling the truth, or believes he is, which amounts to the same thing. Then we have 72 hours to prepare. Steve's voice carried the authority of a man who'd planned D-Day assaults and Infinity War strategies, to fortify defenses, to coordinate with every hero on Earth, to find a weakness in something that claims to be mathematically absolute. There is no weakness. The Joker's voice held certainty that transcended madness. That's the point. That's the joke. Darkseid has won. He just hasn't collected his prize yet. Steve looked at the Joker, this creature who'd allied with cosmic tyranny to prove nihilism correct, who'd weaponized chaos and called it philosophy, who represented everything Captain America had fought against across 2 universes and 70 years of war. And Steve Rogers smiled. Not the propaganda smile from war bond posters, not the reassuring smile for frightened civilians, but something else. Something the Joker recognized with growing unease. The smile of a man who'd heard impossible before, many times, and proved it wrong. You know what I've learned, Joker, Steve said quietly. I've learned that tyrants always think they've already won. Red Skull thought it, Thanos thought it, and now Darkseid thinks it. They all believe their victory is inevitable, mathematical, absolute. Because it is, the Joker insisted. No, Steve's shield caught emergency lighting, throwing star-spangled shadows across stadium walls. Because they forget something fundamental, something that breaks every equation, every absolute, every certainty. What? Despite himself, the Joker leaned forward, fascinated. People choose to fight anyway. The words hung in the stadium air like defiance given voice. Around Steve, the Justice League stood, gods and warriors and heroes who'd heard the prophecy of their own defeat and refused to accept it. The anti-life equation might prove free will is an illusion, Steve continued. It might demonstrate that choice mathematically doesn't matter. But you know what's funny about symbols, Joker? About ideas. They don't care about math. People don't believe in Captain America because some equation says they should. They believe because they choose to. And that choice, that decision to hope, to fight, to stand up even when logic says it's pointless, that's what breaks tyrants. Inspirational speech, the Joker sneered, but speeches don't stop gods. No, heroes do. Batman stepped forward, cape spreading like wings, and we have 72 hours to prove it. The Watchtower transformed into a war room command center. Every available hero was summoned. Justice League, Teen Titans, Justice Society, and independent operators. Even those who normally worked in shadows answered the call. Because when Darkseid brought the anti-life equation, when he came to end free will itself, old grudges meant nothing. Steve stood at the central holo display, shield propped against his shoulder, studying Earth's defenses with strategic eyes that had orchestrated the liberation of Europe. Around him, legends gathered. Batman coordinated logistics, his paranoid contingency planning finally finding perfect application. Weapons satellites repositioned, boom tube jammers deployed. Every defensive system Earth possessed came online. Superman liaised with the Green Lantern Corps, requesting support from intergalactic peacekeepers who had their own reasons to fear Darkseid. Diana contacted the Messiah, calling Amazon warriors to Earth's defense. Her mother, Hippolyta, answered, an ancient queen who'd fought gods before and would fight them again. Flash ran communications between scattered hero groups, his super speed making him a perfect messenger. Cyborg interfaced with every computer system on Earth, creating a unified defense network. If Darkseid wants Earth, Vic Stone muttered, he'll have to fight through every firewall, security system, and weaponized toaster on the planet. And Steve did what Captain America had always done. He inspired. I know you're scared, he said to the assembled heroes, his voice carrying through the Watchtower's communication arrays to every defender Earth could muster. I'm scared too. Darkseid is a god. The anti-life equation is impossible to fight. Logic says we should surrender. Mathematics says we've already lost. He paused, letting the fear breathe, acknowledging it, respecting it. But I've stood on beaches facing machine gun fire. I've fought when half the universe turned to dust. I've seen impossible odds and terrible choices and moments where surrender seemed like the only logical option. And you know what I learned? The Watchtower listened. Earth listened. Heroes who'd faced their own impossible battles, their own nights of the soul, leaned forward. Logic is wrong, equations lie, because they can't account for the one variable that breaks every certainty, the human spirit, the choice to stand up when you should stay down, to fight when you should flee, to hope when hope seems mathematically impossible. Steve raised his shield, battered, scorched, but unbroken. In 72 hours, Darkseid comes. He brings the anti-life equation. He expects us to kneel, to accept that free will is an illusion and resistance is meaningless. So let's show him what this universe does to tyrants who underestimate humanity. Let's show him that some people don't kneel, that some symbols don't break, that hope shines brightest in the darkest night. Silence. Then slowly a sound built, hands striking surfaces, feet stomping, voices rising. Not a cheer, something deeper. The sound of warriors accepting impossible odds and choosing to fight anyway. Batman stood beside Steve, studying him with an unreadable expression. You believe that, the hope speech. You genuinely believe we can win. No, Steve admitted. I believe we can fight. Winning is secondary to not surrendering. Because the moment we stop fighting, the moment we accept that resistance is futile, that's when tyrants actually win. Darkseid wants us to give up before he arrives, to accept the equation's inevitability, so we prove him wrong by fighting. By choosing hope even when hope seems illogical. That's either the bravest thing I've ever heard, Batman said quietly, or the most naive. Can it be both? Something that might have been a smile flickered behind Batman's cowl. Maybe, but naive or not, it's working. Look. Steve looked at the assembled heroes, gods and humans and everything between standing together, united by choice rather than equation. Ready to fight, not because victory was certain, but because surrender was unacceptable. Wonder Woman approached, her ancient eyes carrying approval. You have a warrior's heart, Steve Rogers. My Amazons will stand with you when Darkseid comes. As will the Corps. Green Lantern materialized in emerald light, other lanterns appearing beside him. Hal Jordan, John Stewart, Guy Gardner, Kyle Rayner. Willpower is our specialty. If anything can resist the anti-life equation, it's lanterns refusing to give up. Flash family reporting, Barry Allen announced, vibrating with barely contained energy. Kid Flash, Impulse, and Jesse Quick appeared in streaks of lightning. We're faster than equations. We'll run through Darkseid's forces before his math can catch up. More heroes stepped forward. Aquaman, King of Atlantis, pledged his underwater armies. Black Canary, Green Arrow, and The Question, street-level heroes who fought human criminals but would stand against gods anyway. Shazam, lightning crackling around him, ready to match divine power against Apocalypse. Martian Manhunter, last of his species, understands what it means to lose everything and fight anyway. And more. So many more. Earth's defenders, gathering for what might be their final battle. Superman floated to Steve's side. You've done in 3 days what took us years. United Earth's heroes under one banner, one symbol. I thought Batman and I were the Trinity's leaders, but you, he shook his head, smiling. You're what we needed, what I needed, someone to remind us why we fight. I'm just a soldier, Steve protested. No, Diana's hand clasped his shoulder, warrior's respect in her grip. You are Captain America, and today you became Captain of Earth. It's a defender, its symbol. When Darkseid looks at humanity, he will see your shield, and he will understand that some things cannot be broken by equations or power or inevitability. Steve looked at his shield, vibranium from another universe, carried across dimensions by cosmic accident or fate or someone's plan. It didn't matter which. What mattered was what it represented, what it had always represented. The choice to stand up. 72 hours passed like heartbeats. Earth fortified. Heroes drilled. Civilians evacuated to the bunkers Batman had apparently been building since the Cold War. And Steve Rogers, Captain America, stood on the watchtower's observation deck, watching Earth turn beneath him, beautiful and fragile and worth everything. He's here, Cyborg announced, system screaming alerts. Boom tube opening. Massive energy signature. It's, oh God, it's not just a portal, it's Apocalypse itself. The planet appeared in Earth's orbit like a tumor manifesting in healthy tissue. Dark, angular, burning with fires that had raged since the dawn of time. And from its surface, boom tubes blossomed like terrible flowers, each one pouring forth armies. Not parademons, not scouts. This time Darkseid brought everything. All forces, this is Batman, the Dark Knight's voice carried across every communication channel. Engage defensive protocol Omega. Fight hard, fight smart. And remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for the concept of choice itself, for free will, for the right to stand up and say no. Make it count. Steve's shield hummed as he lifted it. Around him, the Justice League assembled, gods and heroes and humans who'd chosen to stand against inevitability. Captain, Superman extended his hand. Thank you for reminding us who we are, what we fight for. Steve shook it firmly. Thank you for giving me a universe worth fighting for. The boom tubes finished opening, and from Apocalypse's surface, from the throne room where tyrants dreamed of ending free will, Darkseid himself emerged. 12 feet of armored divinity, eyes that glowed with Omega energy, presence that bent reality through sheer force of will, and in his hands, inscribed on stone tablets older than Earth itself, the anti-life equation. His voice boomed across the void, reaching every mind on Earth simultaneously. I am Darkseid, I am the end of hope, the death of choice. The mathematical proof that resistance is meaningless. I bring the anti-life equation, and before this day ends you will all kneel, or you will die." Steve Rogers raised his shield. Across Earth, millions of heroes, billions of civilians, every living being who'd chosen to stand rather than submit, echoed his defiance. No. The word rippled through reality like a stone striking still water. One syllable, one choice, one absolute refusal to accept inevitability. And for the first time in eons, Darkseid paused. Because he'd expected fear, expected resignation, expected the logical acceptance that his power was absolute, his victory certain, his equation unbreakable. He had not expected hope. "Then you will burn," Darkseid intoned. "And your symbol, Captain America, will break first. He will kneel before the anti-life equation, and when he does, humanity's hope dies with him." Omega beams lanced from Darkseid's eyes, red energy that tracked targets through dimensions, that disintegrated anything they touched, that had killed gods. They struck Captain America's shield. Vibranium absorbed the impact, redirected the energy, and held firm. Steve Rogers stood unmoving, unbroken, defiant. "I can do this all day," he said, and the battle for Earth's soul began. The war raged for hours that felt like eternities. Darkseid's armies crashed against Earth's defenders in waves of apocalyptic fury. Omega beams scorched atmosphere. Parademons fell like rain. Heroes fought with desperation born from knowing defeat meant the end of choice itself. But through it all, one image burned brighter than apocalypse's fires. Captain America, standing at the front lines, shield raised, refusing to yield. Every time Darkseid's forces pushed forward, Steve Rogers pushed back. Every time the anti-life equation whispered that resistance was meaningless, Steve's presence shouted otherwise. He couldn't match Darkseid's power, couldn't match Superman's strength or Flash's speed or Wonder Woman's divine heritage. But he possessed something none of them had: absolute, unshakable conviction that hope mattered, that symbols mattered, that the choice to stand up, even against mathematical certainty of defeat, was what made humanity worth saving. And slowly, impossibly, the tide turned. Not through power, not through strategy, but through inspiration. Heroes fought harder because Captain America fought beside them. Civilians refused to submit because they saw his shield still standing. Earth itself seemed to rally, reality bending away from anti-life toward the simple, defiant truth that Steve Rogers embodied. People choose hope, and no equation can eliminate choice. When Darkseid finally retreated, wounded, furious, promising return, his last words echoed across dimensions. "You have not won, Captain, only delayed inevitability. I will return, and next time you will kneel." Steve Rogers, battered and bloodied but unbroken, raised his shield one final time. "We'll be ready." The boom tube sealed, apocalypse vanished, and Earth, bruised, scarred but free, celebrated not victory but survival, the chance to choose their future, the right to stand against tyrants. In the aftermath, as heroes tended wounded and rebuilt shattered cities, Superman found Steve on the watchtower observation deck, watching Earth turn beneath them. "You saved us," Clark said simply, "not just from Darkseid, from ourselves, from the fear that hope is naive, that symbols don't matter. You reminded us why we fight." "I just did what needed doing." Steve's shield rested against his shoulder, comfortable as old friend. Soldiers don't think about being heroes. They think about protecting people who can't protect themselves. "That's what makes you the greatest hero I've ever met." Superman smiled, genuine, warm, hopeful. "Welcome to the Justice League, Captain Rogers. Welcome home." Steve looked at Earth, not his Earth, but an Earth that needed him. An Earth worth fighting for. An Earth where gods and humans stood together against darkness. "Yeah," he said quietly, "home." Somewhere beyond the stars, Darkseid watched and planned his return. But for now, for this moment, Earth had its sentinel, its symbol, its unwavering reminder that tyranny could be resisted, that equations could be defied, that free will mattered because people chose to make it matter. Captain America had joined the Justice League, and hope shone brightest in the darkest night.